Welcome. We'll get started shortly. Before we begin, here's how to earn continuing professional education credit for attending this session. There are no polling questions or attendance checks. Instead, you will demonstrate your knowledge by taking a brief multiple-choice quiz using the Earmark app. Visit earmark.app in your web browser. You can also download the mobile app by scanning the QR code on the screen. Log in, or if you're new, create your free account. Be sure to use a valid email address because that's where we'll send your course completion certificates. From the home screen, scroll down to find the course. You can also tap the magnifying glass icon to search for the course. Tap on the course artwork, then the Enroll button. On the Course tab, you'll find the recording and quiz questions. Complete the quiz to earn your CPE certificate. It takes us a few days to create the course on the app, so if you are attending this session live, please wait a few days. We'll email you a link to the course when it is ready. If you have questions or need help, email us at support@earmarkcpe.com. And now, on to the event.
Well, welcome everybody to another Workshop Wednesday, which is casual conversations for serious workflows, brought to you by schoolofbookkeeping.com, which is all about learning QuickBooks your way, however way you like to learn, right? So we have a new face in the workshop for our casual conversation. So Shauna Quinn, titled Job Costing Ninja. Tell us about that.
I love a job costing ninja.
That's right. You don't see it coming.
It just gets so powerful. I guess I'll introduce myself then. I'm Shauna Quinn. Basically, for the last 10 years, I have owned my own bookkeeping firm that specializes working with construction trades, home builders, remodelers, subcontractors, interior designers. And so our main focus has been job costing. And hopefully, after 10 years, I feel like we have built a perfection around it. Our OCD comes out strong in those moments. And so that's why I'm the job costing ninja.
Now you started, how does one get into construction and job costing? What was the beginning of your journey in accounting?
My dad would say I drew the short straw. Because it's not the easiest trade to support.
No.
I think because my dad was in construction, that I saw him doing it, not the accounting side, but I grew a deep respect for that industry and what they do. And I just felt like it was kind of, it's like being an art retailer, sort of. You have that appreciation for the art, but you're not really good at the trade itself. I have a deep appreciation for what they do and making dreams come true and the beautiful stuff that they put together, but not as talented myself in doing it. So I figured I'd put my skills to use in the accounting world instead and support them.
So was there actually straws for the family and you actually did draw the short one, or did he come to you and say, hey, I need help, or did you offer that help?
I just sort of ended up in the industry initially. I actually was going to school for massage therapy while I was waiting for my program for physical therapy to start at the university I got into after high school. And I was working with a small local company here. Started as a receptionist because it was my first job. And then the office manager quit. And I was like, I'm actually really good at accounting if you want my help while you look for someone else. Got promoted and then actually was the CFO for that company for off and on. I say off because I left for a year, but then came back for 4 or 5 years. So I just kind of ended up in that trade.
And that was a construction trade company?
Yes.
Oh,
So
okay.
they did a home. It was a installation of, so it would be like the subcontractor side. So they
Yeah.
did electrical and security installations for home builders or the homeowners directly.
Well, it just goes to show that the on-the-job training is so crucial and so valuable, because when you really understand that industry, man, you understand the operations, it just makes doing the financial piece so much easier.
Yeah. And when I would come home in the evenings or we would have family dinner, my dad was very immersed in his job. So a lot of our conversations sort of circled around the industry and how it was doing and where he thought it was going and the ups and downs of all the individual trades. So it just felt like, he was now I have to, now I listen to other podcasts or read a bunch of articles that come out about it. But now, back then, it just sort of immersed me into it. And so I gained respect for it and gained perspective because of my dad.
Awesome. Now, Rachel, speaking of industries to get in that are in the deep end of the pool, you manage, in inventory and e-commerce and all that stuff. Do you have any clients that are in the job costing space that need that kind of?
Not really. I do have other service-based clients. I have a couple people that kind of have some field services, but for the most part, no. We're dealing with a lot of cost of goods sold.
Yeah.
But I do know that that's a tough industry, and I was just going to ask Shauna, sorry, and maybe you'll touch on this at some point, but my understanding of the industry is that the payments sort of go down the line, and oftentimes they have a long delay, and and I know that that's a tough industry, and I was curious to know if maybe there's going to be any changes to that, or if that's the norm and that's not really going to change, and because that's much different than the point of sale industry that we're dealing with in moving goods.
Absolutely.
It's really night and day.
Yeah, and we're constantly dealing with the struggle of, because the trade in itself has really kind of reduced the workforce wise. So we don't have 50 options for good plumbers. We may in that area have 2 or 3. So you really want to keep that trade happy and that relationship happy too. So that's constantly a battle. It's constantly conversations that we have to have with our clients. I am seeing a big shift from back to T&M and markup. So we're doing it based off of what we're receiving bills on, and then adding our markup or margins at the end to send invoices out, as opposed to fixed pricing, especially for some of the custom home builders. And I think that that's kind of made it more difficult and more challenging for the business owner, because now we're constantly dealing with needing to pay our vendors on a weekly basis, but maybe they've set up on their schedules for payments that we're not invoicing, but every 2 weeks. So there's a constant discussion about the right way to manage the relationship with the vendors and keep them happy, but also make sure that the owner of the company is not bankrolling these jobs. When you're talking about potentially a brand new home build, you might have a framing invoice or plumbing or roofing, and these could be, 20, 40, 50, 60, 70 grand.
Yeah.
So that's a big amount of money for a company to basically pay before they've collected it. So timing of how everything processes and functions is always a very big conversation with all of our clients.
So this segues very nicely into our general topic of just job costing in general, right? Mm-hmm. And so what is job costing, Shauna? And what would, somebody comes to you and say, well, what is job costing and why is it important? What would you what would you say? You're trapped in an elevator with a contractor.
Elevators. This is why I try to
I'm
take
sorry,
this
I
No.
threw a trauma triggering scenario.
No, I think the easiest way to describe job costing is basically categorizing it against a proper cost code or an expense account, and a customer for which that expense belongs to, for every transaction that comes through, except for obviously overhead expenses. But making sure that all of those expenses that come through for a job are categorized properly to that job, and then, tracking it properly. So that's the, I guess, easiest way to describe it. And you could do it for all industries. We just support our construction industries.
Right. Because I guess in that industry, you tend to have the kinds of business owners, right, that either worked for somebody and then want to go out on their own, right? And so they're not taught, in the trade schools, or they're not taught in their work experience,
Right.
how to price these things, right? Like how to run their business. So a lot of times, and would you agree that, by and large, or in general, most of those business owners operate off of their gut, like their gut feel, as far as like
Yeah, I
those types
call
of
it the
things.
yellow pad.
I was just going to say that too. I was going to say there's probably some old timers that are like, this is the way I've always done it. And that,
Yeah, they go to estimate a job with the yellow pad and they write down and be like, this is about what I think we're at.
And why this is important is that if you're actually categorizing things appropriately, and those, you basically mentioned three dimensions, right? To the customer or the project, to the cost code, and then to the expense account, so that all three of those are kind of working in conjunction with each other to remove the gut from the equation.
Yes.
Right? And then they can actually see, yes,
Yeah.
this was profitable. I charged appropriately. Is that what you find that a lot of construction or contractors get themselves in trouble with?
Yeah, I think that's why it's been a good return of the T&M, because it's more in their face. When they receive a big bill, they want to make sure they're seeing that big bill on the invoice, to go out to the client. So the return of charging time material plus markup has been a good shift for several of our clients. They were... I have one in particular who is terrible at estimating, and we were just spending so much time on the phone with the clients, constantly asking, well, this is so over. And this is when it becomes an issue too, because then we're having to deal with clients that might be on the job site, and they might approach the plumber while he's there, and they're like, I think I'd like to make this change. Can you add this out here? And that adds another aspect of areas of concern, because now the contractor is not really a part of that conversation. The owner just approaches the person on the job site and says, I need you to add this. And so then we're sort of out of the loop when those overages come out. And so then we can have that conversation with the clients and say, listen, when you need changes made, you need to be coming to the project manager. He may not be on the job site the entire time, but here's the contact information, because it needs to take the right channels. Otherwise, you are going to see estimate versus actual reports that aren't accurate, because we weren't kept in the loop. But that's a good learning lesson for the owners too, right, to know which clients are doing that.
Can I ask you a question, Shauna? Just out of curiosity, because I don't really talk to a lot of these kind of business owners, like what would the split be? Like, I don't know, 50-50, like businesses that you see that maybe are not job costing, or maybe just sort of looking at their bottom line, like, okay, well, I know I'm making this. As opposed to job costing, where really you're looking at the individual project. Is this project profitable? Is that project profitable? How many are looking at things like that versus how many are just walking around clueless?
I would actually say all of our clients job cost. I will let anyone get away.
For that.
Even if you have clients that aren't in this industry, we make them job cost. I job cost. But for clients coming in, it has been actually the biggest pinpoint and pain point for them, because the cost for us to go back and say, we've got a year's worth of data. I need you to tell me how to categorize this so we can job cost for you. And obviously there's a big expense added to that. So I would say probably 70% of the clients who have come to us to have us take over, we're not job costing at all. And on top of that, I want to say probably 20%, so very little left over, who did it right. 20% said they were, but they weren't capturing everything.
Right. Well, I get that.
So stuff to COGS and to cost codes, but it never was assigned to a project. And so then you're like, well, here's now this really big report of expenses that you had, but no jobs assigned, but you've got it put to a cost code. So I have a lot of people who look at the bottom line number, which is why we do profit first, because some of our owners are very much like this, that they look at it and go, well, I've got money, so it looks like I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
You have money, but these conversations could be around that, hey, you could be doing 20% better. You could be doing 10% better. I just had a conversation with a client that I said last week that I said, you need to increase your markup. The conversations that we're having about him wanting an office, him wanting to start having some specs built, his markup does not support the extra income to cover those costs. So and he's not being competitive enough in the area that he is. So that's kind of what I'm working on now for him, is an analysis of what I'm seeing markups from other contractors that are at the level he is in the market area that he's in. So I can go back to him and say, I understand that maybe the closing ratio became less when we did the initial increase of your margins on this job, but I don't think that you should look at out of those 5 clients that walked away, those 5 potential clients, because overall your percentage is 7% less than what these other people are charging. Mm-hmm. And the conversation that the first question I always get, and this is exactly when I know, like, I need to have more than a half-hour call with an oncoming prospect, is, so could you just tell me about what you charge? Like, that's always the first question. And it's like, it's not as easy as that. It's not a one size fits all, like Ma actually might charge it. That might be more because it takes me so much longer to manage.
and that, I mean, I think in that, when that question comes up, it's, I don't want to say it's easy, but it's not a stretch to basically turn it back to them and say, well, if you went out to a customer for whatever is your industry, your plumbing, and and a customer asked you over the phone, what would you charge for this without sight unseen, right? They would sign the
contract stating you're going to stay to that.
Yeah, exactly. Just tell me how much this is going to cost me. And they're, then they can probably see the light of, okay, well, I guess you gotta, there's more to it, because you peel off, I call it strip mining. You peel something away and say, oh my goodness, there's an electrical problem here that I need to.
Well, usually they are, sorry, I was going to say in a prospecting call, I usually find that they're just making up numbers. I don't know what they're talking about.
I mean, That's my proposals. I never actually provide a full proposal until they sign an NDA and give me access to the QuickBooks I'm going to be working in. Because then I can give them a better estimate, a better realistic idea of what ongoing services plus project costs would be. But I could have the conversation with them as well to say, you're welcome to go elsewhere, but sometimes less is not always like the better way to go. I mean, I've got a couple of reviews from clients over the last, I guess, a handful over the last 10 years that we've been in business. And it's, they've said she's not the cheapest, but she's the most knowledgeable one that I've been able to connect with. And now I fully understand entirely what I'm looking at, which makes me a more powerful business owner.
Yeah, I mean, I
had a plumber tell me one time that cheap is expensive, and I never forgot it because it is.
Yeah. I had some guy door knock to me, and I needed some handiwork done, and he ended up doing a semi-covered patio, and wouldn't you know, 3 years later it started to sag and all of that stuff. So I got what I paid for sure.
Yeah.
So,
and an inexperienced person, to your point, that's like, I've seen too many of those. And our position when we're managing someone's books, their the livelihood that they're trying to create for themselves or their family, we can make or break a situation like that because of the advice that we're giving or lack of advice that we're giving. So taking on the client when you don't even understand that industry could be very detrimental to the person you're trying to help.
Right.
Yeah.
So this segues into now QuickBooks to manage all of this job costing. Now you, like Rachel, are focused mostly on QuickBooks Online for your clients, and the conception or misconception, and that's what we're going to talk about, is this mindset that QuickBooks Online doesn't do job costing, right? Like I from the Intuit perspective, when I worked there, that was the common theme that I heard from accountants and bookkeepers, especially those coming from the desktop world and dipping their toes into QuickBooks Online. Like, I don't like the way that QuickBooks Online does job costing, but here you are, 10 years working in this industry, and you most of your clients, or would you say all of your clients? I think there was one last holdout on desktop that we worked together on.
Yes, and now they're online and they're very happy. And they do 145 houses a year, and they are using QuickBooks Online to do their job costing and to help them forecast for how to price these houses out upon completion for sale and profit. So the power of the power of beast, I don't know, it's there. You just have to know how to use it correctly to make it work for what you're looking for.
Right, because as we're having this conversation, from the QuickBooks perspective of does it do job costing, for me, my answer was, well, yes, it does billing by customer, because if you have an expense or a bill or a purchase transaction, and you're able, or time, right, and being able to associate a customer with that, that's kind of the key moment or key aspect of job costing, at least what I thought job costing entailed. So I would say, well, yeah, it does, because you've got this billing by customer option. But as we are uncovering, it's a lot more to that, because you have other things that the business does, like payroll, for example.
Yeah, and there's a few different kinds of job costing, and as I'm getting my master's in accounting right now, and there's all different kinds of job costing, job order costing and process costing, and different kinds of costing you can't really do in QuickBooks Online. But I'm going to just say simple, straightforward, specifically for trades, you can use the project centers, and it is amazing.
Yeah.
So I guess, you know, in when we talk about, you know, job costing and doing it in QuickBooks Online, are those three things that you talked about with the, you know, cost codes, the customer job materials, and then you know, those expenses, and then the accounting, the categories or chart of accounts that you're doing, those things work in concert. But do you need other aspects to be able to truly get an accurate job cost, or what have you found?
I wouldn't say to get an accurate job cost, because you're able to assign and split out one expense to 100 different cost codes or 100 different accounts and assign it to 100 different projects if that's necessary. But there are different types of job costing, and there's different needs of job costing based off of the bill, even for our trades. So the gentleman I was just talking about that does custom home builds, those are all client-owned lots. So the way I job cost that, from a mapping standpoint between that cost code and how it points to our financials, is very different than when we're doing a spec build and it's on a lot that is owned by the company. The mapping is different. So it's just having that knowledge to make sure that you've got it set up properly in the system and that it's being utilized properly. We also use classing as a functionality differently for some of my clients that want to track, you know, jobs that are remodel versus like different rooms that they're remodeling. So you can even do different, like use it for like size or project size categorizing. There are a lot of clients that we have that use third-party products, but that's mainly for the communication between them and their clients. And it's for proper tracking of what's true job cost versus what is a change order versus what has to be a back charge, or a VPO, a variance PO that has to get produced. So that's more of like an internal thing. But as those things get pushed over or as they're booked into QuickBooks, it's the same functionality. They just use it for approval between the client and themselves, or internally between owner, project manager, and vendor, for the approval process for subcontractor agreements, stuff like that, which is a necessary tool to have. Because of the legal stuff that's required and because you want to stay on the safe side and have that communication for backup. But from an accounting perspective, what we're doing, QuickBooks has the functionality for us to make that process work.
Yeah, you can crunch the numbers. You can do it all. I love that. I love that you can do it in QuickBooks Online. So you guys, I have to go because guess what? I have an appointment with Payroll Elite onboarding. I love Payroll Elite. I never thought I would say it. QuickBooks Payroll, but Payroll Elite is different. So, he's calling me right now. Okay, bye guys.
Hi, Rachel. So
and
Shauna,
actually, to play off what she's saying is that the time functionality within payroll or within QuickBooks, you know, we've got a lot of our clients, they've got carpenters on staff, and they're project managers. So they're using QuickBooks Time to track the cost. And then when we run payroll, QuickBooks determines the cost associated for both wage and tax into that job costing scenario. So, you know, those are all things that tools within QuickBooks that you can utilize for that. And then obviously, when you said billable expenses out to clients, check the billable box, create you could either have the markup already in your QuickBooks and predetermined, plus your labor billable rates, predetermined and entered in the proper areas of payroll or vendor, wherever they sit, to be able to easily then generate invoices with that. So the capability is there. Like I said, you just have to have the knowledge and the experience to know how to use it properly.
Exactly. And then, you've said it a couple times of cost codes and then the chart of accounts. What is the difference between those things? Like if, again, you're trapped in that elevator with, with someone and you have to explain, the difference between allocating to a specific expense account or cost codes, because that's something that gets me wrapped around the axle when I hear that term being thrown out. It's like, well, how is that different than a specific chart of account?
Well, so in QuickBooks, they call it your product and service list, right? But we call it a cost code. And basically, a lot of my clients, actually, none of them have the same cost code list. You think that at some point
There would be a
this
consistent
uniform, and I have a uniform suggestion report, but nobody has ever opted to use it. They all have their own that they want to use, the different coding. But a big part of what that is, so I'll just use an example just because today was the day that we're generating invoices. We invoice for this client every single week because he wants to pay his vendors every week. So to keep them from having to bankroll that job, where we invoice the clients on a weekly basis for expenses truly incurred by them Monday through Tuesday prior, right? So it's billable time from his employees. It's true expenses like Home Depot runs and stuff like that. That's always existing. And then your subcontractor material bills that come through. So we're generating these invoices for him, and each one of these line items has a different cost code. So we've got our labor, which is a different cost code because I need that to point to a different account in our chart of accounts. So that needs to be pointing, we actually have it for him. It actually rolls into cost of goods. So it's above the line in that cost of goods of labor for payroll expenses. Subcontractors and material, we split that out for all of our clients. I will not allow any of them to combine it. And the main reason for that is from a workers' comp perspective. When we're doing workers' comp audits, I need my subcontractors to be in a very separate account than or cost code than on any of our material expenses, because I don't need a workers' comp for Lowe's or, Ferguson bathroom stuff. So, that's why we are using cost codes from an accounting perspective. They're using cost codes because when they go in from a customer standpoint, right, the business owner standpoint, when they're providing us an estimate, they want to be able to break out and say, this is what your plumbing is going to be. This is what your electrical is going to cost you. We have drywall, we have paint, tile materials, and then you've got sometimes allowances to be able to track, to say we budgeted for 25 grand for, appliances in your kitchen. And so at this point, here's what we've purchased and here's what we spent. So this is the allowance essentially that the owner and the builder set aside to say, here's what this is going to cost. So those are the reasons for that. I have clients that have, 80 different cost codes. But out of all of those 80 cost codes, my cost of goods account listings on the P&L maybe only be 5 or 6 at most. So I've got my workers' comp, I've got labor, material, subcontractor, and then sometimes miscellaneous that gets booked in there. So it's so that your chart of accounts doesn't have to be 100 long. Although I have had prospects come to me and they have set up 100 different cost of good accounts instead of using the cost of good codes, which is a lot.
So the product service list is where the cost codes live, which then feeds into reports inside of QuickBooks so that you can run reports based off of the product and service, those cost codes and not necessarily need to see all that on their profit and loss, which
Right.
could
From an
be miles
overall
long by then.
perspective, having 100 accounts under your chart of accounts or under your COGS is not necessary, because I could pull a by job report by cost code from QuickBooks. And I can pull it either from the expense side, or if we are doing T&M plus markup, I could bill it from the income side, which will tell me here's by cost code how much we have billed out to our clients plus that markup.
Exactly.
So, you can see it from both sides, which is also how we internally double check to make sure that we're capturing everything properly as well, to make sure that our line items are totaling the same.
So you have guardrails in place so that you can spot the anomalies if they happen to show up.
Yeah, I mean, whether it's $3 or a $7,000 charge, I want to make sure my clients are being profitable, and the only way to do that is to make sure we're on our end capturing all of the expenses that should be getting billed out to their clients.
Yeah, the reports are only as good as the data that's in them.
Yes.
So
yes.
For sure. So the project center inside of QuickBooks, I can't remember when it was actually introduced, probably in like 2016 or something like that, where
I want to say it was like the last year into it was in California.
Yes.
That's how I said it.
When that first came out, from my perspective, I'm like, all this is doing is just putting things in one place that you could access elsewhere. But since they did that, right, they kind of put things in the project center inside of QuickBooks Online, it's kind of evolved and added more flexibilities and functionalities, and being able to see, like, now you can you throw out a jargon term of T&M, so that's time and materials for those those that don't know. But you can go into the project center and see the time cost as it relates to a project, but you can also flip that between the payroll cost and the hourly cost, so you can see
as long as
different
you're
things.
utilizing and entering that data for QuickBooks to be able to calculate it.
Right.
Because there's the cost and then the cost rate that you manually enter. So we calculate that for all of our clients, and we basically take the average amount, assumption of they work 40 hours, what those related taxes would be. And so, for certain states, they may have state income tax, they may not. So you have to take that into account. Unemployment always ends at a certain point because they only collect so much. So you have to take that into account. And then we basically use that and what their workers' comp rate is for that role being played. Fulfilled, right? Carpenter versus a project manager versus a roofer. They're going to have different costs associated per billable hour, per hour that they're on a job site. So all of that gets calculated together to create what that cost rate is. And that's what we use constantly too, to make sure that they're being profitable to where these specific clients want to be from an internal labor perspective. If they want to be 100% profitable, then we're constantly monitoring that to make sure that we're at the right cost rate or right billable rate, and staying on top of that. So the functionalities, a lot of stuff is there, but if you don't know how to set it up properly, then it's not user friendly, because it's not going to show you the data that you're hoping for it to show you.
Right. So now that segues really nicely into the future for you, Shauna, and and what's going on with us working together. Is that you have, and you were on the workshop a couple years ago, and I think you first had this thought or this idea of, like, you've done all this hard work, and it would be helpful if other accounting professionals knew that. You want to teach others how to do things the Shauna way, right?
Yeah, I want to empower the other accounting professionals to be able to support these special trades that my firm is supporting. I just have internally grown to a place where I'm happy with where we're at after 10 years, and want to shift my focus to making sure that we're keeping the pool of wonderful accounting professionals full
Right.
for small business owners in the special trades to be able to work with. So that's kind of my next journey, 10 plus years.
Right. So you're in the clone process of how can I clone myself?
Maybe my husband would say maybe someone with more hair, but yeah.
Exactly. So so tell us about your new project that you're working on, a community, and how that how people might want to work with you and on a if they find this niche or this industry appealing, but really don't know where to start. What's in store for them?
Well, so I created a play off of the bookkeeping firm that we have. So it's Bookkeeping for Contractors Group. Initially, our initiative is to help mentor, coach, and provide resources to accounting professionals, whether they are with a firm already or they're looking to go out on the firm and they want to just kind of get into this niche. To be able to provide them that training to help them get there and feel confident in it. And then down the line, part of this program will also include being able to provide referrals of small business owners of these special trades looking for an experienced accounting professional to join their team. So obviously I need to build the pool and then get our accounting professionals in it. And then I can start pulling them out and providing opportunities for client onboarding.
Yeah, because in this niche of general contracting, just to say that there is further sub niches, right? That where you could do residential versus commercial, or
Yeah.
plumbing, like you trades, field service, those types of
Yeah.
things, right?
There's a lot, and I've supported a lot of the different types. So I've supported the small subcontractor, an electrician, and a plumber. I have supported a large commercial builder that was doing, hotels as investments. So there's, and I've supported a home builder that did, 130, 140, 50 units a year. And I support clients that are doing home remodels, small. We support interior designers. So the need is there, and I just want to be able to to connect these two groups of people together to continue to help this industry be successful from both the accounting standpoint and from a contractor standpoint.
Yeah, like I was in when I first started my own business, I joined a BNI group, and this particular chapter ended up having multiple lawyers, right? Like you would think, okay, well you got a category of a lawyer. Why would we have more than one lawyer? It's because one focused on family law and the other one focused on injury, right? And so if they were to get a prospective client, the injury lawyer that needed estate planning, right? Like there's the perfect referral. So you are essentially trying to do that in your community, so that these practitioners who maybe they specialize in one construction niche over another, they'll be able to kind of pass referrals back and forth, or it's all going to go through Shauna first, right? No, it's
for now it's going to play
internal
through
community.
Yeah, part of my role in that part of it is going to be, I call them my discovery calls. So I'll manage it the way that I manage the onboarding a client of my own. or interviewing essentially a client of my own. I want to make sure that I'm collecting as much information as possible, because just as I want to be able to provide them with a vetted accounting professional that's truly qualified to help them, I also want to be able to provide the accounting professional with a vetted small business owner that's not here to just waste time and try to get as much out of that person for free.
So they're not saying you're not going to send them the people that say, well, how much do you cost?
Right. Tell me, what's your fee? No, both sides will be vetted, and I'll be able to provide as much information to both parties about both parties as possible to ensure that it's a successful fit for both of them.
And then how we are working together as far as School of Bookkeeping and bookkeepers for construction group. Did I get it right?
Bookkeeping for contractors.
Contractors.
Group, but yeah.
Okay, I'll get it. But how we are working together is, we've already got a course library for QuickBooks, but what we don't have is a job costing course, right? So that's where Shauna and I are going to be working together in November. Beginning in November, we will start the workshop series and go through the fundamentals of job costing and job costing in QuickBooks. So hopefully you'll join us for that. It will be a series, and it will be rapid fire, right? and then ultimately what we'll do is repurpose all that content for a course that you can take at any given time. And then what we're going to be doing, working together on top of that, is School of Bookkeeping will be the learning platform or the learning course content where Shauna and her team will be doing the vetting, the community, and really getting into the mentoring of that community, right?
Yeah.
Did I capture that right?
You did.
All right. Well, we've got the link. It's up here. You can take a QR code. It's also in the comments there. Apropos, the site is under construction. So
just have a few more tweaks to make, and then in the next couple of weeks, we're waiting for some updated material for our partners that for the tech stacks that I've put together as part of our membership program. And so once we have all of that, I didn't want to release a half-done website. I wanted it to be fully ready to go. So my goal was by the Intuit conference, we had everything updated and live and sort of starting that process.
So by the time we start our workshop series, we should have a workable website. So if you're looking at this today and wondering when's this site going to be ready, it should be in November or so. But as we know with construction, sometimes there are surprises. There might be electrical problems to figure out.
I think on this side, it's more like the number brain has to transition to a marketing brain, which is a hard shift to make.
So look forward to that moving forward. And Shauna, it'll be great to see you at Intuit Connect. And everybody that's joined us today. We appreciate you joining us, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time on the Workshop Wednesday, where we'll be talking about the new changes in QuickBooks Online Accountant, the new user interface that they teed up last year at Intuit Connect, but now they're finally getting around to it. All right. So we'll see you next time on the Workshop Wednesday. And Shauna, thank you again for coming on today. And we'll see you more in November.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye now.
Bye.